I think I could do better. Okay, we're live.
We're live.
It says you are live. So anyway, we're live. Welcome to Mile High Recovery Chat. I'm Bryce.
And I'm Lindsay. Here for another week.
Yep. So how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm doing good. I was telling you it's a full moon.
Yeah.
And we've got Mercury going into retrograde. So like technology is like people are gonna have like issues with like their tech devices. But I will be, after we're done streaming, going and laying all of my crystals out on my deck to let them get a full moon bath.
So you're doing tarot and astrology stuff, right?
Yeah, I've really gotten into tarot. Last January, I connected with a gal by the name of Julie who owns Clear Intuition, and she does new moon ceremonies. So you use the powers of the new moon to like manifest.
Yeah.
And there's certain powers associated with whatever zodiac sign that new moon cycle is in. So it's kind of just dovetailed into opening up a whole other world of kind of tapping into my intuition and like the powers of the universe.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
I believe in that stuff. When I first got sober, I got like 2 years sober. I really got into it and manifested a whole new life, I believe. And I still do a full moon thing.
Do you?
Yeah, I do this thing where I write down, depending on what mood I'm in, like what I want to bring into my life or what I want to let go, depending on the new moon or the full moon, and I'll write it down, and sometimes I'll burn it, sometimes I won't. I'll do like a little meditation, and then I'll just kind of, I don't know.
I love that. You know, full moons are really good for like pushing stuff away, like releasing, and then the new moons are really good for calling in and like intention setting and manifesting.
Yeah,
I could geek out on this stuff all day, but I know we have like a super awesome guest with us this week.
We do. So
we do.
Tonight, we are interviewing Ryan Boyd. He's an author. He wrote a book called Clean at 15, and he got clean at 15 years old, and like that's a whole conversation right there.
Oh yeah.
I didn't read the whole book, but I read as much as I could, like probably half of it, and so he can fill us in on the ending. But I know he's active here. He's in the recovery community, and I know like a bunch of people that I work with. They go to meetings with him.
Yeah, he and I connected earlier today. He's like 23 years active in the program and the 12-step fellowship. So yeah, he's a huge resource for anyone out there that's struggling with drugs or alcohol or is in sobriety and needs someone with some insight to provide.
All right, so let's bring him on, Ryan.
Yeah. Ryan.
Hello, good evening.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. Where are you right now?
Where am I?
Yeah, you in Colorado?
No. I'm on the East Coast. We're on our land in North Georgia, just at the foothills of Appalachians.
Oh. What's it like? Is it cold?
Yeah, not really. I mean, you step out in a t-shirt and shorts, and it was like 55 in the sun today and 30 last night.
Oh,
it's cold here.
Suck.
That's good.
Yeah, it's cold here, for sure. I'm jealous.
Yeah.
So, Ryan, you wrote a book.
Don't be. You got to put up with a lot of rain here. Yes.
Oh.
You wrote a book. It's called Clean at 15.
Yes.
Yes.
I did that, right?
I did. You ready for the story?
The delay. Yeah, I started to read it. I got about halfway through, and super abusive stepdad, correct? Yeah, it was sad. So go ahead and talk about it.
Well, I was in Denver a year and a half ago, and I started contracting again, which is something I really don't like to do. Using my body to, fix drywall or sand drywall. But anyway, I was grateful to have had a couple good contracts, and I was grateful to have hired several men and women, and we all got paid from some contracts. I came back to Athens, rented a house for 1 year, and the first 3 weeks, I started on January 1, 2020. I wrote the book about getting clean at 15, staying clean no matter what. And I believe that anyone from anywhere can get clean anytime. And there is no right age or wrong age or right drug or bad drug or no sentence or sentence that I think should help people determine whether they want to get clean. And I just thought if everyone writes a book before they die, the world would be a better place. And I didn't want to write a book about touring it with a band or my music industry or this or that. Particularly, I really just wanted to focus on staying clean. And it happened for me at 15 to get the chance. And 97 was a tumultuous year. My life from 3 to 15 was pretty tumultuous, with about, 4 years of the American dream, and then the collapse. The dad gets fired, the mom starts drinking, dad makes $4.25 an hour working 2 jobs, mom doesn't work at all, and I had no out.
So what happened is you got your mom remarried, correct?
Yeah, she remarried a couple of times after my birth father, and there was a good stepdad, a bad stepdad, and both influenced me tremendously in not so good ways. And so I'm really glad I got clean at 15, because I began to meet people that were older than me in meetings that showed me, hey, we're not so great over here. We're kind of effed up, and we come from some similar backgrounds. But look, we're living responsible, productive lives in recovery, and we used to be youth. We were just maybe 21 or 31 when we got clean, and not 15.
So you got clean in NA, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so back then, I know I got clean much later, by the way. And like when I was in detox, they were talking about there's other ways. There's not just 12-step programs. There's Smart Recovery, there's Life Ring. But back then, it was pretty much NA or AA, correct?
Yeah, in 1997, there was no Celebrate Recovery. There was no that new one that Noah Levine came out with, Refuge Recovery. It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't popular to get clean. It was, but it wasn't. Now, thank God.
You were really young. 15 years old is young to get clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your experience is unique.
Right.
And I like getting clean at 15, as hard as that probably was, I'm imagining staying clean through your 20s when all your friends are, drinking and whatnot. What was that like?
There were many nights where, starting in the teens from 15 to 18, those 3 years, and then going on into 18 to 23, my college years, there were many nights where I just stayed at home and wrote on a step, and knew that that's where my life was, and that I was going to have to give up going to college parties. I dated an older girl in college who didn't use to keep me away from the younger girls that did. I had to counteract. I had a coffee shop, and I threw shows there. I didn't have a bar. I tried to stay out of those scenarios when I played live music when I was, God, I had over 4 years clean when I really started playing music, and when I was 21, I hated playing bars, but when I had my band members that supported my recovery, that was possible. And, I'd be on tour and I'd call my sponsor and I'd go to meetings and, I just kept the program and kept people that believed in the program for me, around me all the time.
Yeah.
So when you think about young folks that are, 15, 18, early 20s, and to Bryce's point, like you still have your whole life ahead of you, but yet you feel like you're missing out on all of these like rites of passages, like 21 and having your first drink, or, missing out on all of those experiences. What's your suggestion to like the younger folks that are watching us right now that see you with long-term sobriety that started so young?
Right. I would say this to anyone who's under the age of 21 and sober or thinking about getting sober. Look at your life now. How does your life feel now, right where you're at? And if it's not how you want it to feel, then it doesn't matter what's going to come when you're 21 or through those so-called college years, rites of passage, whatever. Because if you don't make it past 18, I was going to go to prison at 18. And if I could, or die before that, right? Because there was that window between 15 and 18 of 3 years being clean. And if I'd have continued using, and that's kind of what comes to my mind is, how do you feel now? If you're young and you're thinking about getting clean, or if you're already clean and you're young, none of that other stuff is going to matter if you feel horrible when you used, or you feel horrible now while you're still using.
Right. Yeah. You might not even like be around for like some of the. Yeah. Yeah.
Because for us, to drink is to die, and my next use, in the back of my mind was, just come back into a meeting, and pick up a white chip. My next use in the back of my mind was always, you could live, you might die. And there was never a planned scenario to what if I had to get clean again. And I stayed in meetings for the first 3 to 5 years, almost every day.
Were there any other young people like your age getting clean?
No. I was in a rural town in Kentucky, 3 hours from St. Louis, 2 hours from Nashville. There were like 3 or 4 kids that the probation officers would send through. That was the only place I could go. My probation officer would only let me go to a meeting after 7 p.m. at night. And my first sponsor was 17. And he drove from a tobacco town 45 minutes away. And then aside from that, I didn't even really meet people that were young and clean until I was 17 and 18. And that was when I would leave and go out of state to a convention or another meeting.
So I just still think it's like amazing that you made it without a relapse through all that time. It had to be hard.
Yeah, both my parents have died. I had back surgery about 2.5 years ago. I did all narcotic. After I woke up, they didn't. I told them, don't put another thing in me unless it's Tylenol or non-narcotic. And then I relied heavily on the literature, right? I mean, I literally had a pamphlet for what happens when we go through surgery or mental illness, on the hospital bed table, and I would read it, and I would call people, and I called, an addict in Grand Junction where I had the surgery, and I said, hey, come smuggle me in some what are those yellow cough drops, Ricolas, because the hospital didn't have a good lozenge and my throat was so sore from the intubator from when they put me out. And you just got to stay submerged. I believe there's 8 things. I came up with a list of 8 things. If you could just do 8 things, don't use. You read about it, write about it, pray about it, go to meetings, talk to your sponsor, do service, and those 8 things, pray about it. Sorry, I missed that one. If you can do those 8 things before you ever use, after you do the first one, don't use. There's like 7 other things you could do. Sooner or later, the truth comes up in us. We either identify with ourselves, we either call ourselves out, we come to the truth, to the bottom of our soul. And a lot of times when I was young, I have to admit, the disease was blaring so strong, that I had to just do one of those things where even if I'm not an addict, when I used and got 12 felonies, I don't want to catch another felony, right? And then also, I could die. Like, they could give me some bad stuff. I could drink alcohol, drive the car, crash the car. We crashed the car. We walked out of the car. 3 of us walked out of a car. We jumped a railroad. The car hit the ditch on the right side. The tire went out. The car flipped. It caught on fire. It was a little 80s Ford Escort with no seatbelts on. I mean, I didn't want to go back to that.
So I have a question. So when I was 16, I got arrested for alcohol. Okay. And when I was 18, I got arrested for alcohol. And then when I was 19 and I went to college, I woke up in vomit. And then when I was 21, I remember smoking crack with prostitutes in a abandoned townhouse in Baltimore with no electricity and no running water the day before Thanksgiving, and then going to Thanksgiving. And then I got like 2 DUIs. So any of those stories could have been my bottom. Like, I could be in AA at this age saying, when I was 19, I woke up in vomit. That was my bottom. I didn't do that. I drugged the bottom for another 2.5 decades. What is your advice? Because I work with a lot of people. We get a lot of young men and women in their early 20s, even maybe earlier, but not usually. And they say they're too young to clean. They're too young to stop, never smoke pot, and never have a beer. And we know that doesn't work if you're truly, one of us. And so talk about bottom. What's your advice to somebody who thinks, I got more living to do, I haven't hit bottom or whatever?
Well, it's really easy for me to handle someone like that. The steps are there for us to write them, to really know our own story and confront ourselves on the page, right? And then play it back with our sponsor and play it back in the meetings in our recovery community. And I believe if someone truly isn't done, they're not going to write the steps. And they're not going to get to the bottom. So to get to the bottom of the story, I don't think it stops. We know it doesn't stop when you stop using. We know that the disease of addiction and all the turmoil and the chance of relapsing does not stop once we stop using. It stops once we enter recovery and get to the bottom of the story. We can be at our bottom using, but then we have to get to the bottom of the story. So until they start working the steps, and I know nobody wants to hear that. It's like, you want a job, you got to fill out the paperwork, right? Well, you want to be in recovery, you got to fill out the paperwork. And if you don't think you're ready, I can't help you. And if people want to get clean without the steps and want to get clean without pen and paper and get clean without a recovery center or, Mile High, go for it. However, there's a lot less chance of relapsing when we fully immerse ourselves in 12-step recovery, fully immerse ourselves in a recovery community, and we don't leave. So, you're going to get to the bottom using, and if you don't think you're at the bottom, but there's all these other things going on, they called it monkey on your back. They called it, judge on your back, wife on your back, right? Or kids are disappointed. Where's mom? Where's dad? Where's my uncle? You don't have kids, but you can't show up for Christmas. Where's my uncle? Well, he's doing whatever. And if that's not a bottom, for people to just see yet, then I guess they're not ready. But if they work the steps, maybe they'd see where their addiction could be affecting them, like especially people that come in with jobs, come in with careers, come in with money. There's a guy in Denver, he has $250,000 in the bank when he gets clean. And, his life was looking great, but his bottom was he didn't feel right. So if everything else is looking good, it takes some digger deeping. And if you don't want to write the steps, then just right here in this moment, how do you feel? How do you feel when you use? How do you feel when you're using? Or how does everybody else feel when you use? Because sometimes we're the rock star of our own show, right? We're happy. I'm happy using. No, I'm not bothering anybody. And then if we take a look at that and we look at everybody else, well, how does my family feel? I felt horrible when I'd black out drunk and say horrible things and find out at high school what I said the next day, or when I would jump into a car and steal it, or whatever, right? And I didn't have to be high or loaded to steal a car. The rush of stealing the car was loaded for me. So just off adrenaline, right? And before recovery, I would do that. Since recovery, I have not stolen a car to get an adrenaline rush. Right? I have, however, went skiing on a run I didn't think I could do, right? Or went on a tour. There's so many other things you can do. Writing the book was a rush. Being on this Zoom with you guys is a rush. Having people that truly believe in me puts a revival in my spirit and fresh blood in my veins, and gives me a different feeling than when I was using. I felt horrible staying clean, and I felt worse clean than I ever did using in a lot of ways. I was the CEO of a company. I went from being a CEO to an Uber driver, and the product that I had, I didn't invent it, was going to go into Walmart, and then my business partner failed me, and then all of a sudden I'm in Denver driving Uber 55 hours a week, making $1,200 a week, right? And like just to pay rent, half that in rent and living, and lost a girlfriend. There's a lot of things there. I could go on, and that's what the book's about. It's about you could go through anything clean, and there are no excuses to get loaded. They taught me that when I got clean when I was 15. There are no excuses to get loaded. You think you got it bad? Somebody else got it bad. You think you got it bad? If you don't think anybody else has it worse than you, you're not looking around. And that's how I feel. That's how I feel. That's what keeps me grounded in recovery. And that's why that bottom stopped, because I hit a bottom using, and then I got to the bottom of the story clean through the steps, multiple 4 steps. I worked a 4-step just on relationships once when I was like 20, but it helped. And oh my God, it didn't necessarily kick in. And that's one thing I gotta kind of precursor and warn people with about the steps. It's not instant like the dope. It's not instant like the dope that we put in the body. It's like boom. It's like you can work a step, and then 8 years later, oh, that's what coming to believe means. It takes our mind a while sometimes to catch up with that. But if we put chemicals in the body, they pollute the mind, and we never get to that. So I would say just keep working the steps, hang in there. There's people that got clean in California at 10 years old, 14 years old. In the 90s, I heard these stories, right? And there's plenty of people in my circle that got clean at 15, 16, 17, 18. I call it Club 21, before 21. And these people have 30, 40 years now, and I will drive to LA and make a meeting with the old timers that sat in the meetings with the formation of the second largest 12-step fellowship. I need experience and hope from people that are older than me and for people that have been clean longer than me, and I need help from people that work in the field, and I need help from people that go to my meetings, like Sarah, you know, and I need help from everybody, because the disease is always stronger than Ryan, but it's never stronger than everybody.
Right. I remember when I first got sober, I had to go to therapy, grieve 2 decades.
Yeah.
I did. I grieved 2 decades, like, because like, like when you start using heavily, you stop maturing emotionally. And I had to work through that. And I remember thinking, God, I wish I could go back and go through life like well-intentioned, and sober, and able to execute and travel and chase girls, sober-minded instead of like but I can't, right? And I couldn't. But it's like I like this because we're on the phones all day. We answer the phones all day. People are calling for treatment. They're calling for this. They're calling for that. Do you take this insurance? Do you take that insurance? I need help. I don't have any money. I don't have any insurance. And it's like, dude, you can get clean without treatment. You can get clean living on the streets. And there are ways and programs and people that are there to help you. 12-step meetings cost $1. Not even that. You don't even have to put anything into the basket. You can.
That's right.
But it's like nobody really wants to hear that. But and I didn't want to hear that. But I got to a point where I started approaching recovery like I had no choice. And that was the difference, is that before I was like, well, maybe this, maybe that. I have a choice. I can do this, do that. And then finally I was like, I give up, man. I got no choice. This is it for me. Do the steps or die.
Yeah, exactly. I believe
today, same thing. I said, if you could go to the best treatment centers in the world, and then there's some guy over here who works a solid program, I'm putting my money on this guy over here every single time.
Right. Yeah. There's a rehab in Colorado. It costs well above $1,000 a day. That's 30 grand, right? I had a sponsee from Denver that went to Arizona, paid $1,000 a day, and when that $1,000 a day is over, it might have been worth something when you were in there and you couldn't use. You'd get kicked out if you used. You were monitored. You were tested. Most people don't use there. When that $1,000 a day is over, I don't want to say it's worth nothing when you get out, but it ain't necessarily going to last. What we did for yesterday's recovery isn't going to necessarily sustain us today. It's like we can't eat. We can't all go out to dinner last night and then live off that food we ate last night for the rest of our lives. We can't pay $1,000 a day in a rehab or $10,000 a day and guarantee us that recovery is going to sustain us. So when you get out, wherever you got out of, if you did and were fortunate enough to go to rehab, I was fortunate enough to be 12 years old and had my 13th birthday in rehab in Denver. Had no idea what was going on in here at the time. It wasn't until 2 years later, 2 more years of using, that I was like, whoa, 2.5 more years of using. My clean date is 8/14/97. That and 2 more trips to rehab, mind you. So 3 trips total, 2 in 97, 1 in like 95 when I was 13, and then also 1 after I got clean. I was suicidal momentarily. I went for like 10 days. So basically, hands down, I believe addicts walk into meetings every day all over the world, and they get clean and they stop using and they never use again. And some of them never went to treatment, never went through any kind of recovery center, and more so than people that do. So because like you said, the 12-step meeting is $1, or it's technically donation only. It's technically fully self-supporting through our own contributions, and there are no requirements and no petitions to sign and no contracts. So, it's better than an Amazon Prime subscription, and you're going to get more out of it. And you're going to meet real people that went through real situations. And that's the holdup that I think a lot of people can't get over is when they do sign themselves up for treatment. Yeah, it's going to be great. But if you can't, don't rob yourself of real life situations with real people who went through those situations, because they are in every meeting, 12-step meeting, every Zoom meeting now, any physical meeting now, all the time ready for you there. And what if you don't like them? What if they don't like you? Well, what if they don't like you in the treatment center you're paying $1,000 a day for? You're going to have to deal with yourself and other people, whether you do it on the street, get clean off the street, or get clean off of recovery center. But ultimately, a recovery center and recovery community is what is going to sustain us and feeding that recovery daily, right?
I love how you put that, because like my journey did go through treatment. That's where like my step one was. But when I got out of treatment, it was a deer in headlights. Like, this isn't going to last. I don't know what to do. My natural instinct is to drink when I want to hide, when I don't want to feel anything. And so it was only because of the 12 steps and the fellowship and doing the 8 things that you spoke about that, like my recovery has lasted as long as it has.
Right. It's awesome. Ryan, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you guys. God bless you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
It was so great to meet you.
See you soon when I get back to Denver.
All right, cool.
Bryce, who do we have on next week?
Next week is Sasha Alex Raskin. She runs an organization called A Beautiful Mess. It's a mental health organization that does corporate talks and events to combat loneliness, depression, and mental health stigma. And she's going to come. She did a TED Talks, and she's going to come talk to us about what she does and her journey with mental health and fighting stigma and what she's doing.
Love it. Awesome.
Okay.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks.